Welcome, spiritual seekers and curious minds, to Echoes of Truth, your podcast dedicated to unraveling the profound wisdom of the Yatharth Geeta by Swami Adgadanand Ji. I'm your host, Your Name, and in this series, we're embarking on a journey to explore this timeless scripture in a way that's as concise and accessible as possible, without sacrificing an ounce of its true essence. My goal here is simple: to make the Yatharth Geeta not just a story, but a practical guide for your daily life. We'll be diving deep into each topic, discussing its intricate details, and showing how these ancient teachings can be directly applied to our modern challenges. Forget abstract philosophy. We're focusing on the nuts and bolts of spiritual living. So, whether you're new to the Gita or looking for a fresh perspective, join us as we explore the path to true understanding, one practical insight at a time. So now, let's begin.
Okay, let's unpack this. When you hear Bhagavad Gita, what often comes to mind? Perhaps visions of a grand ancient battlefield. Or maybe dense philosophical texts that feel a million miles away from your daily life.
Right, something purely religious, perhaps, or just a historical epic.
Exactly. But today, we're taking a deep dive into the Gita that might actually profoundly surprise you. We're looking at it not just as some ancient text, but as an incredibly practical, really deeply personal guide for your inner world. Right here, right now.
And offering profound insights into the challenges, the choices you face every single day.
Yeah.
What's truly fascinating here is how often these profound spiritual texts just brimming with universal wisdom, are misunderstood. Or, they get reduced to mere historical accounts or rigid religious dogma.
Right.
Our mission today is to go far beyond the literal narratives, to demystify and really reveal the universal truths embedded within the Bhagavad Gita's timeless wisdom. We want to show precisely how its insights are directly applicable to the complexities of modern life,
helping you extract the absolute core meaning, which is just so much more than simply intellectual understanding, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's about experiencing the wisdom.
Our source material for this deep dive, Yatharth Geeta, gives us a truly unique, I think, and remarkably accessible perspective. It really helps us unlock the real transformative wisdom within this sacred text. It specifically focuses on breaking down some of the most crucial Sanskrit terms, the ones that are often almost untranslatable into a single English word.
Yeah, and that leads to so many misconceptions, so many limiting interpretations.
Exactly. For instance, we'll clarify dharma. It's far more than just religion, as it's commonly assumed, especially in the West.
It points to something more like an innate universal conduct.
Right. Or karma, which goes way beyond a simple action.
It encompasses intention, consequence, your whole spiritual trajectory, really.
We'll be clarifying many of these key terms as we go, trying to get to the very essence of what they truly mean in the Gita's profound context.
And this deep dive, it's really designed to offer you those undeniable aha moments, connecting this ancient wisdom directly to your personal journey, but without you ever feeling overwhelmed by, information overload.
It's about giving you a true shortcut to being well-informed, letting you discover these fundamental principles that can genuinely guide you through the complexities of modern life, offering clarity, maybe even purpose.
Exactly. Your time is incredibly valuable, and we really aim to make every moment of this discussion resonate with profound, actionable insights. Insights that you can truly internalize and hopefully apply, setting the stage, the inner battlefield.
Okay, so let's begin by stepping right into Chapter 1, right at the precipice of the battle, and let's explore the very concept that seems to define the Gita for so many people: war.
Right, the Kurukshetra War. When we talk about the Mahabharata, the epic saga the Gita is part of, it instantly conjures images of these massive armies clashing on a vast, dusty field.
Yeah, it's a very vivid image.
But the Gita, as revealed through our source material here, asks us to look much, much deeper than that external conflict. It states unequivocally that the war in the Bhagavad Gita isn't a literal physical battle between armies. Not at all.
So what is it then?
It represents a profound, continuous internal conflict, one that rages within the human spiritual heart.
Ah, okay. That's a critical distinction to grasp right from the outset, isn't it?
Absolutely. The source text is crystal clear on this. It says, war is the conflict between the riches of divinity and the devilish horde that represent the two distinct, contradictory impulses of the spiritual heart. Its final consequence is the annihilation of both.
Annihilation of both. Interesting. So it's not about good simply winning over evil in the traditional sense.
It seems more about transcending the duality itself. The source explicitly clarifies the Dharmkshetra and Kurukshetra of the Gita are no geographical locations.
So not actual places on a map.
No. This war is fundamentally an existential struggle between matter and spirit, knowledge and ignorance, Dharmkshetra and Kurukshetra. The ultimate goal here, the real victory, is the vanquishing of demoniacal powers and the restraint of thought.
Restraint of thought, leading to inner freedom and spiritual alignment.
Exactly.
So what does this all mean for you? Listening right now, the Gita isn't suggesting you go pick up a sword or, join a physical army. It's asking you to look inward, to deeply understand the continuous, often exhausting battle for your own spiritual heart, the one you face every single day.
Mm-hmm. Think about your own daily life, that persistent internal debate.
Yeah.
You should do something productive, finish that report, maybe go for a walk.
But that lazy impulse or just the desire for immediate comfort pulls you strongly towards procrastination or maybe just endless scrolling on your phone.
Right. Or the struggle to maintain calm and patience when you're stuck in frustrating traffic.
Mm-hmm.
That wrestling with the urge to just succumb to anger.
Or the discipline it takes to resist an unhealthy craving for food. Or maybe that subtle but powerful pull for social validation that steers your actions without you even realizing it.
Oh, that, in essence, is precisely the kind of war the Gita refers to.
A constant battle against our lower impulses, our negative thought patterns, our attachments, our spiritual ignorance.
And this perspective, it immediately transforms the Gita. It goes from being an ancient, maybe intimidating epic tale
into a deeply personal manual for self-mastery, a practical guide for navigating the most significant conflict any human being faces, the one within themselves.
Exactly. And if we truly connect this to the bigger picture, it means the Gita transcends its historical setting. It becomes a truly universal text, profoundly relevant to anyone, anywhere, grappling with their own inner demons and desires.
Regardless of their external circumstances or cultural background.
Absolutely. It posits that true, lasting victory is always internal. It's a triumph over one's own limitations, ego, and destructive thought patterns.
So this is a battle that everyone can relate to. A student struggling with focus, a professional facing ethical dilemmas, someone in retirement grappling with life changes.
Precisely. Everyone. And the core insight here is that by understanding the battlefield is internal, the Gita fundamentally shifts our perspective. We move from blaming external factors or circumstances
to profound internal agency and responsibility. It becomes an empowering guide for cultivating inner strength, discernment, and ultimately, true liberation.
It really does.
And where exactly is this war, this internal struggle fought? Does the Gita specify the location?
It does, and the answer is incredibly profound and immediate. It's not some distant land or a specific temple or a sacred mountain. The human body itself, including our incredibly complex mind and all our senses, is the designated sphere or field, the kshetra,
the battleground.
Yes, that's where this internal spiritual war unfolds. It's right here, in your own being, your immediate experience.
Wow.
The source explained this beautifully. It says, the sphere where the above war is fought is the human body, a composite of the mind along with senses. And it elaborates further, saying the body is transmuted into a Dharmkshetra, field of Dharm, when there is abundance of divinity in the realm of the heart.
Dharmkshetra.
Yeah.
Field of righteousness.
Exactly. But it degenerates into a Kurukshetra when ungodly forces of negative sinful impulses prevail.
So our internal state, the quality of our thoughts, emotions, intentions, that literally determines the spiritual quality of our personal battleground.
Precisely. It's not about geography. It's about consciousness.
Okay, let's try to visualize that. Imagine your body and mind as your home, your most intimate space. You have the power, the choice really, to keep it clean, filled with light, positive energy, inspiring thoughts.
Making it a Darmstadt, a field conducive to spiritual growth and peace.
Or you can allow it to become cluttered, chaotic, filled with negative thoughts, recurring anger, unchecked desires, constant external distractions.
Turning it into a Kurukshetra, a field of unrighteousness, a place of internal conflict and suffering.
So the Gita is teaching us how to constantly maintain, purify, uplift our inner home.
Yes. It emphasizes that our internal state directly determines the spiritual quality of our existence and experience.
It's not about finding some sacred place outside yourself, like a temple or a specific location.
No, it's about making yourself sacred. Every thought you entertain, every emotion you nurture, every choice you make.
From what you consume mentally to how you react to challenges.
It all contributes to either building up your inner Darmstadt or letting it decay into a Kurukshetra.
That raises an incredibly important question then. If our physical form and mind are the actual battleground, then every single thought, every sensation, every choice becomes a strategic move in this internal war.
Exactly. It places the immediate responsibility and, more importantly, the immense power to change directly on us, on the individual.
The core insight here seems to be that true spiritual transformation, lasting peace, it begins and ends within one's own body and mind.
It's a continuous conscious process of purification, discernment, alignment.
And that's profoundly empowering, isn't it? It means the tools for liberation, for self-mastery, are always within our reach.
They aren't dependent on external circumstances or physical locations or what other people do.
It's an internal revolution.
It really is.
So we've understood the war as internal and the battleground as our own body and mind. But what about the armies? The characters we read about in the Mahabharata, the Kauravas, the Pandavas, their allies, are they just historical figures?
Well, in this context, the Gita suggests they're not just historical figures. They become powerful, living symbols. They represent the various internal impulses, qualities, forces that reside within each and every one of us.
Okay. So understanding them helps us identify our own inner landscape, the forces at play within our own consciousness.
Precisely. It allows us to recognize them and then address them. Our source provides incredibly rich and insightful detail on this symbolism. It really brings these characters to life as aspects of our own psyche.
Okay, let's break some of them down. Where should we start?
Let's start with Dhritarashtra, the blind king. The text says he's blind since birth, seeing and hearing only through Sanjay, who's described as the epitome of self-control.
Interesting contrast there.
Yes, Dhritarashtra symbolizes our innate spiritual blindness or ignorance, and crucially, our deep infatuation with negative impulses. These negative impulses are personified by his favorite son, Duryodhana.
So that blindness, that infatuation, prevents us from seeing reality clearly, makes us cling to our flaws.
Exactly. His inner eye, the text says, will be focused on the Kaurav, who symbolize the ungodly forces of negative, sinful impulses. It shows our inherent bias towards our lower nature.
And the Kauravas themselves, they represent those pervasive, ungodly forces, those negative impulses within us.
Yes. Think of them as our inner flaws. Anger that flares up, greed that drives endless craving, the inflated ego distorting our perception, jealousy, all those aspects pulling us away from our higher self.
The aspects contributing to our inner Kurukshetra.
Exactly. They're the persistent bad habits we struggle to break, the addictive behaviors, the self-serving thoughts, all leading us away from true peace.
Recognizing these as the Kauravas within allows us to confront them directly.
Right. And countering these destructive forces are the Pandavas. They represent divine qualities, virtuous forces within us. Take Yupeen, for example. He's often just seen as physically strong, but the text describes him as the very image of sentiment.
Sentiment? In what way?
Spiritual sentiment. The text explains that God can be experienced through wholehearted reverence and spiritual sentiment within the devout heart. Lord Christian calls this Shraddha, which is defined as highest devotion.
So Bhim isn't just muscle. He symbolizes that pure, unwavering faith, genuine spiritual feeling, profound devotion that allows for a direct experience of the divine.
Yes, that heart's yearning for truth.
Okay. What about Dronacuri, the teacher?
Dronacuri, the revered teacher of warfare, represents imperfect knowledge that induces the hunger for enlightenment.
Imperfect knowledge. How so?
Well, his death in the epic is triggered by his overwhelming attachment with his son, Ashwathama. This symbolizes a really subtle but powerful point. Even knowledge, if it's imperfect, or crucially, if it's coupled with strong attachments.
Attachments to people, ideas, outcomes.
Exactly. Even attachment to one's own identity as a knowledgeable person. That attachment can become a significant impediment on the spiritual path.
So pure knowledge liberates, but knowledge tainted by attachment can still bind us.
Precisely. And his son, Ashwathama, who is deemed immortal in the epic.
Right, because of a boon.
He symbolizes how fixation remains present as an obstacle until the last moment.
Those stubborn inner obstacles, deep-seated psychological fixations, ingrained habits that are so hard to overcome.
Exactly. They often resurface even when we think we've conquered them. Demanding continuous vigilance, they seem almost immortal within our minds.
Okay, who else? There's Vikarn. Wasn't he a Kaurava who spoke out for justice?
Yes, he represents alluring fancies and terrible obstructions in the spiritual pursuit.
Alluring fancies, like distractions.
Powerful distractions, tempting thoughts, seductive daydreams that crop up during spiritual practice, constantly pulling us away from focus.
Like when you're trying to meditate and your mind just wanders off to totally irrelevant things?
Exactly that. Vikarn shows even seemingly minor distractions could be major obstacles.
And Kurishrawa, that name sounds significant.
He represents the deluded state of being puffed up, Schwas. Literally, breathing in one's own importance.
Spiritual ego.
Yes, a very common and dangerous pitfall. It happens when a seeker elevates in practice or gets some external recognition, maybe people call them Mahatma or saint, and they get puffed up by such acclaim and admiration.
So the journey becomes about outward appearance or personal glory, not real inner transformation.
Precisely. Vanity.
And finally, Pisham, the Grand Patriarch. He seems complex.
Very. He's described as the image of delusion and self-deception. Ignorance is present as long as there is delusion.
Even though he's powerful and wise.
Yes. He's tied to the Kaurava side by a vow. He's ultimately undone by Shikandi, who represents the unique quality that is essential for the man who chooses the spiritual path.
So Bhisham symbolizes our deep-seated self-deception, illusion, ingrained biases, the really hard stuff to dislodge.
Exactly. Things that require a very specific, often uncomfortable, internal quality or insight to dismantle.
Wow. Okay, here's where it gets really interesting and profoundly personal, I think. These aren't just characters in a story. They are the living, breathing players in the drama of our own minds.
The force is constantly at play within our consciousness.
Every single one of us has a bit of Dhritarashtra, blind to our faults. A touch of Duryodhan, embodying those bad habits, and hopefully some Bhim, that faith inside. The Gita uses these characters as archetypes to vividly show us our own inner landscape.
It's a profound psychological and spiritual mirror.
Reflecting our own states, giving us a framework for understanding the complex interplay of forces within us.
And teaching us precisely how to identify, navigate, and ultimately master this inner cast of characters.
To achieve inner victory and lasting peace.
Beautifully put. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, it implies that self-awareness specifically, awareness of these internal characters and impulses, is the absolute first step towards self-mastery.
By identifying these symbolic armies within ourselves, we gain the clarity needed to strategically strengthen our virtues and diminish our negative tendencies.
Which raises an important question. How often do we mistake these inner battles for external conflicts?
Right, projecting our struggles onto others or blaming circumstances.
Exactly. The core insight here is that the Gita offers a timeless, universal psychological map, guiding us to recognize, confront, and ultimately integrate or transcend our inner forces.
Leading to profound inner harmony and true spiritual evolution.
Yes.
Now, building on this understanding of the internal battlefield and its symbolic armies, let's turn to Arjun's initial dilemma in Chapter 1. He's shown as being profoundly reluctant to fight his own kinsmen, seeing his beloved teachers, cousins, friends on the other side.
And this isn't just a convenient plot device. It symbolizes a deeply universal human struggle, the immense power of attachment.
Attachment to family, relationships, comforts, reputation.
And the profound fear of severing those ties, even when spiritual progress seems to demand it.
The source illustrates Arjun's state of mind so vividly. He's unnerved, his body grows inert with despair, he sees inauspicious portents.
He's sorely distressed by the prospect of a war in which his own kinsmen face him.
His fears are so relatable. He fears Varn Sankar, the intermingling of classes, thinking it leads to damnation and societal chaos.
And he grieves because he fears for the safety of Sanat and Dharma.
Which brings us back to that term.
Yes. And the source explicitly states, in the first stage of spiritual seeking, attachment to the family looms as an obstacle. It continues. The worshipper is overtaken by despair when he realizes that after going a certain length of the way, he will have to sever all his ties of attachment to the family.
That highlights the profound difficulty right at the start of the path.
It does. And in Indian society, perhaps more than many others, family ties, community, tradition are incredibly strong.
They often form the very bedrock of identity, social standing, emotional support.
Exactly. So Arjun's dilemma resonates deeply in this context. It's the profound fear of breaking social norms, disappointing loved ones, giving up comforting routines for what seems like an abstract, demanding spiritual goal.
For many, the idea of renouncing attachment feels like abandoning responsibilities or neglecting loved ones.
Right. Arjun's worry about the social fabric, the Sanat Dharma, as he understands it in terms of customs, traditions, like performing ancestral rites for fallen kinsmen, perfectly captures this human struggle.
His concern about Varn Sankar reflects a fear of societal chaos if traditional roles are abandoned, even for a righteous cause.
It's not just about giving up physical things, it's the emotional bonds, the societal expectations that define so much of our lives.
So this raises an incredibly important question for all seekers, doesn't it? How do we pursue profound spiritual growth without becoming callous, irresponsible, or isolated from our duties and relationships?
And the Gita, through Krishna's counsel, begins by addressing this very human, very relatable conflict head-on. It shows that the path often starts by confronting our deepest comfort zones and attachments.
The core insight here seems to be that spiritual growth, true liberation, often demands a profound reevaluation. And sometimes a detachment, not necessarily from duties, but from our attachments to even seemingly good relationships or outcomes.
Exactly. It's a crucial early hurdle. It touches our deepest fears of isolation, loss, social disapproval.
The Gita acknowledges how difficult this is and prepares the seeker for the immense inner fortitude and discernment needed to navigate it.
Ensuring that true detachment isn't abandonment, but liberation from emotional dependency. 2. The eternal self and true action.
Okay, moving beyond Arjun's initial despair now into chapters 2 and 3. The Gita introduces one of its most fundamental, profound, and ultimately, I think, liberating teachings. The eternal nature of the self, the soul.
Yes. This core concept is that the soul is indestructible, birthless, perpetual, and entirely distinct from the transient, perishable physical body.
And understanding this radically changes our entire perspective on life, suffering, death itself.
It really does. Lord Krishna begins to exhort Arjun, urging him, "Don't give in, O Parth, to unmanliness, for it does not become you." Then he lays down this foundational truth. He who regards the self as the slayer, and he who regards him as the slain, are both unaware of his real nature, for he neither kills nor can he be killed.
Neither kills nor can he be killed.
Powerful, isn't it? And it clarifies further in a truly transformative verse. Neither ever born nor dying, neither at any time coming into being nor ceasing to be, the self is birthless, perpetual, unchanging, and timeless.
And he is not destroyed when the body is destroyed.
Wow. Our source uses a potent, relatable analogy here. It says if you hack a body to pieces, the soul just puts on another body like a new apparel.
Like changing clothes.
Exactly. An unbroken continuum.
Okay, let's really unpack this and feel its liberating power. This is a cornerstone teaching in many Indian philosophies, and it's meant to be incredibly comforting, empowering. Imagine it vividly. Just like changing clothes, you naturally discard old, worn-out garments for new ones. The soul, our true essence, simply discards old bodies for new ones, continuing its journey without interruption.
This perspective profoundly shifts our deepest, most ingrained fear of death.
Transforming it from annihilation into a natural process of transition, a continuum of existence.
Think of the intense grief often associated with loss. This teaching offers a lens to understand that the essence, the soul of our loved ones, is eternal. It simply continues its journey.
It's not an end, but a grand, ongoing journey.
Exactly.
So if the soul is truly eternal, birthless, and just changes bodies, then all our worries about physical loss, about killing or being killed, about the impermanence of this world, they fundamentally change.
It's a game changer for how we approach life itself. Moving from the perspective of a temporary, fragile existence
To an eternal, fearless spiritual journey.
Absolutely. If we connect this to the bigger picture, it means our true identity, our profound essence, is not tied to our perishable physical form, our fleeting emotions, or our changing circumstances.
This understanding is a game changer, not just for death, but for life itself.
It liberates us to act from a higher, more liberated perspective, unburdened by mere bodily concerns or the temporary joys and sorrows of this world.
Consider someone grappling with a terminal illness, or the loss of a loved one, or the fear of failure.
This teaching offers an anchor, a fundamental truth that transcends the immediate suffering. It allows for a profound sense of peace and purpose amidst life's inevitable challenges.
The core insight here is that understanding the soul's eternality liberates us from that overwhelming fear of death.
And empowers us to act from a higher perspective, facing challenges, even death itself, with peace, resilience, and unwavering purpose, knowing our true self is untouched. Yeah, untouched. That's powerful. Now, another absolutely critical concept the Gita clarifies, especially for us navigating diverse cultural and spiritual landscapes, is Sanatan Dharma. We touched on it with Arjun's fears, but let's go deeper. This term is so often misunderstood, equated simply with Hinduism or a specific religion.
Which leads to significant division. But the Gita, as revealed in our source, defines Sanatan Dharma very differently, not as a static religion or a set of rigid rituals, but as the universal, eternal conduct that inherently unites the individual with God.
Transcending all superficial customs, external rituals, man-made divisions.
Exactly. The source makes this distinction powerfully. Sanatan Dharma is the conduct that unites with God, and it pointedly critiques what it calls silly customs, that we have lost the capacity to realize that food and touch cannot destroy Sanatan Dharma.
Wow, that's a direct hit against sectarianism.
It is. It attributes misconceptions about Dharma to things like the worsening communal situation, partition of India, and even for the serious threats to our national unity and integrity, highlighting the real-world consequences of misinterpreting such a fundamental principle.
Yes. And it stresses that no object of the material world can touch this universal spiritual principle, underscoring its transcendent, incorruptible nature.
This is incredibly powerful and often misunderstood, especially in the Indian context, where Dharma has sometimes been, co-opted or diluted into rigid social customs. Historically, many external practices like strict rules about who can eat whose food or who can touch whom, or specific rituals tied to birth, they've caused immense social division and suffering.
We've seen tragic historical events where people felt stripped of their dharma after perceived ritual impurity, sometimes leading to despair.
The Gita, through Lord Krishna, is explicitly stating that true dharma is about inner conduct.
Qualities like truthfulness, compassion, self-control, purity of intention.
And one's inner journey towards union with God, not external dietary rules, social taboos, or even particular places of worship.
It's about the underlying universal principles of righteousness and spiritual connection. accessible and applicable to everyone, everywhere, regardless of external identity.
What's truly fascinating here is how the Gita, through Krishna, courageously cuts through centuries of potential misinterpretation and superficial practices.
It aims to restore the true, liberating essence of Sanatana Dharma.
It's a direct message. It's not about what you eat, who you touch, or the specific rituals you perform externally.
It's about the state of your heart, the purity of your intention, your inner journey towards God.
This raises an important question. How do our contemporary societal customs and rules, religious, cultural, even corporate measure up against this profound inclusive definition?
Are we perhaps inadvertently creating divisions where none should exist, obscuring the universal principles that genuinely unite us?
The core insight seems to be that true spiritual practice transcends narrow social conventions. It focuses on inner transformation and authentic, direct connection with the divine,
making it truly universal, inclusive, accessible to all, irrespective of social background or external observance.
Following on that incredibly liberating theme, the Gita also radically redefines the concept of Varn. The four traditional Varns, Brahmin, Kshatri, Vaisya, Shudra, often mistakenly understood as rigid birth-based castes,
which unfortunately led to so much social stratification, discrimination, injustice throughout history.
Right. But the Gita presents them in a profoundly different light, as classifications based on innate abilities and actions,
representing dynamic stages of spiritual and human development, not inherited social status. This is a crucial distinction. It overturns centuries of misunderstanding.
How does the source explain this?
With precision. It says, ancient sages divided the travelers on the eternal path of the self into four classes: Shudra, Vaisya, Kshatri, and Brahmin, according to their innate abilities and actions. It explicitly states Lord Krishna created the four classes according to innate properties and actions, directly asserting this, not divided men into four rigid categories determined by birth.
Not by birth, that's key.
Absolutely, it explains. In the primary stage of accomplishment, every seeker is a Shudra, meaning one who is deficient in knowledge, someone just beginning.
Like Arjun, who is identified as a Kshatri class worshiper.
Exactly. He's enjoined to remember his ability to wage war internally, and crucially, the text emphasizes that ultimate absolution is within the reach of devotees in the stage of Vaisya and Shudra as well.
So spiritual attainment, liberation, is open to everyone regardless of their starting point.
Yes. Varn is thus a scale, a yardstick, to measure one's capacity for action, indicating a dynamic, progressive path.
Okay, let's unpack this, because this understanding is incredibly liberating and empowering. It fundamentally redefines caste away from that rigid, discriminatory, birth-based interpretation. Instead of being born into a fixed group, imagine it as a fluid developmental stage in your personal growth, your spiritual journey, a journey you can actively progress through. A Shudra might be someone just starting, maybe struggling with focus and meditation, or feeling overwhelmed by spiritual concepts, like a student new to a field but eager to learn.
A Vaisya could be someone managing their inner resources effectively, applying spiritual principles to work or family, contributing consciously.
A Kshatri is someone with the inner strength, courage, discipline to fight their internal battles, like overcoming a tough habit, confronting fears, showing unwavering self-discipline.
And a Brahmin is someone who has attained profound inner peace, wisdom, knowledge, having mastered lower impulses and connected deeply with the divine.
This means anyone from any background, any walk of life, can advance through these stages based solely on their effort, innate qualities, chosen actions.
Not their family name, lineage, or any external label.
This is incredibly liberating. It means our spiritual destiny isn't predetermined by birth.
It's dynamically shaped by our inherent nature, our conscious choices, how we choose to act and grow.
So what does this mean for someone wanting to start or deepen their spiritual journey today?
It means the door is wide open to all. The path is defined by internal effort, self-cultivation, developing virtuous qualities.
Not by external labels or restrictive social structures.
It promotes a true meritocracy of the spirit. Inner transformation is the only genuine measure of progress.
The core insight here is that the Gita champions universal individual spiritual potential, making a path to self-realization accessible to all, irrespective of social standing, birth, or past circumstances.
It's a powerful call to personal evolution and inner freedom.
Absolutely. Now let's dive into the profound concept of karma, not just action, but true action, and the pivotal teaching of Nishkam Karma Yoga, or selfless action. This is a big one, often simplified, but the Gita goes much deeper than just doing good deeds.
Yes. True action karma isn't merely any activity we perform. It's action performed as a yagya, which is understood here as an internal act of worship, undertaken without attachment to its fruits or outcomes.
And this selfless approach is presented as the absolute key to liberation from the cycles of suffering.
The text highlights this crucial distinction. Karma is something more than action. It stresses with profound clarity. Whatever other than yagya is done is only a form of worldly bondage, not true action. The performance of yagya is the only real action.
No, that's a fundamental redefinition. Only yaga is real action.
According to this interpretation, yes. It elaborates beautifully on the benefit of selfless action. In the performance of action, without coveting the fruits thereof, the initial impulse or the seed is not destroyed. It also does not give rise to any evil.
Meaning it doesn't create binding karmic impressions.
Exactly. So selfless action, even though done in small measures, frees us from the great fear represented by birth and death.
Lord Krishna tells Arjuna to just sow the seed, emphasizing the act itself, not the expected harvest.
Right.
So how do we apply this profound idea of nishkam karma to our daily lives? It sounds quite abstract.
Let's make it concrete. Imagine a homemaker preparing a meal, not for praise, not for compliments on the food, but out of pure love, a deep sense of selfless duty, a desire to nourish their family.
That dedication, performed without expecting a thank you or a specific outcome, that's closer to nishkam karma.
Yes. Or think of a social worker who devotes their life to helping others, not for recognition or a certificate or a salary bonus, but simply because it's the right thing to do, driven by inner conviction and compassion.
The true joy comes from the purity of the act itself, the intention, not the external result.
Exactly. The Gita emphasizes aligning our actions with a higher purpose, transforming even seemingly mundane activities into spiritual offerings, into acts of yagya.
So it's not about changing what we do necessarily, but how we do it, our internal attitude towards the outcome.
Precisely. It's about letting go of that controlling grasp of expectation.
This raises an incredibly important question for us in a world so intensely driven by results, metrics, external recognition. How do we cultivate this mindset of nishkam karma in our daily lives?
It requires a fundamental conscious shift in our internal orientation, moving from what will I get from this action
to what is the right action to perform right now, irrespective of the outcome.
It means understanding that sowing the seed with a pure, selfless intention is what truly matters. Not whether that seed yields the exact fruit you envision, or any fruit at all.
The core insight is that selfless action profoundly purifies the mind. It breaks the cycle of desire and suffering.
Because desires are often the root of disappointment and attachment.
And ultimately leads to profound inner freedom and lasting peace, regardless of external results.
It's a powerful pathway to inner liberation amidst external pressures, transforming ordinary life into a continuous, conscious spiritual practice. 3. Navigating life's internal properties, gunas, and obstacles.
Building on that concept of true action as yagya, let's further clarify what yagya truly means in the Gita. Because contrary to its popular perception, especially in many traditional Indian contexts, as purely external fire rituals or elaborate ceremonies.
Right. The Gita reveals yagya as profoundly an internal process, a process of worship, divine adoration, and consistent yogic practice.
It's an inward journey leading to the ultimate manifestation of God within the seeker.
The source clearly articulates this profound redefinition. Therefore, the true meaning of action is worship. It means divine adoration and practice of yoga. It emphasizes that true yagya involves internal processes of contemplation, forms of worship that render God manifest and known.
That's key, rendering God manifest and known. It's about realizing the divine within.
Exactly. It instructs us to subdue the senses, control the mind, and augment pious impulses.
And that rain emerging from yaga, it's not literal rain.
No, the source clarifies it's not the rain that falls from clouds, but the shower of grace.
The spiritual blessings, insights, transformative energy arising from sincere internal practice.
Yes, this redefinition is crucial for understanding the practical internal application of the Gita's teachings for personal transformation.
So what does this all mean for your spiritual practice? It completely redefines worship and where it happens.
It's not primarily about grand ceremonies, expensive offerings, or external shows of devotion.
Instead, it's about the quiet, consistent, profound work we do within ourselves every single day to connect with the divine.
Think about the common practice of puja in many Indian homes, often done with physical offerings, chanting, rituals beautiful as they may be.
But the Gita guides us to understand the true puja, the one that really counts, is internal.
It's the daily discipline of focused meditation, the conscious effort to control the mind's incessant chatter, its wild thoughts, like calming a restless child.
It's turning away from endless digital distractions or unhealthy sensory inputs, subduing the senses.
And actively cultivating positive divine impulses like compassion, gratitude, selfless service.
And the shower of grace is the inner peace, the wisdom, the clarity, the tangible spiritual progress from this consistent, dedicated internal effort.
It's the transformative power of internal purification and alignment, making your consciousness itself a sacred space.
What's truly fascinating here is the unwavering emphasis on the inward journey.
Meaning, authentic spiritual progress is primarily inward, transforming consciousness through dedicated internal practice.
Rather than depending on mere external rites, offerings, or pilgrimage sites.
It's about diligently building a sacred space within your own being, a purified vessel where the divine can manifest and be experienced.
Which raises an important question. If true worship is fundamentally internal, how do we cultivate the discipline, the awareness, the consistent effort?
To make every moment an act of yajna, transforming our busy, often mundane, daily lives into continuous spiritual contemplation and connection.
The core insight here is that the Gita demystifies yajna, presenting it not as an ancient ritual, but as an accessible, internal, deeply practical discipline.
Leading to profound inner transformation, spiritual awakening, and ultimately union with the divine.
Now let's delve into another fundamental concept, crucial for understanding our own inner dynamics. The three gunas, sattva, rajas, and tamas, often translated as virtue goodness, passion activity, and ignorance inertia.
Right. The Gita teaches these are the three fundamental properties of nature, influencing all actions, thoughts, emotions, and that they subtly bind the soul to the physical world, shaping our experiences.
And here's the surprising part, the profound insight often overlooked. Even goodness, sattva, can be a form of bondage.
Yes, if it fosters attachment to joy and knowledge, it can become an impediment to ultimate liberation.
The source is quite direct and piercing here. The virtuous property binds the self to the body with attachment to joy and knowledge. So sattva too is a bondage.
It's a truly profound insight, challenging conventional notions of good and bad.
The source further quotes the original Sanskrit.
Yes. Ehur true smeller. Efesi splay. Kiesiesi mayam nime. Then is yefchesethelsi kalian fc fles civilis.
Which translates to,
actions are performed by the properties of nature. The deluded soul, bewildered by egoism, thinks, I am the doer.
the ego identification. That highlights the root of our bondage, identifying with these gunas.
Exactly. It also notes that ignorance, tamas, passion, rajas, and virtue, sattva, are born from God, but he remains unattached to and unsullied by them. He exists beyond their influence.
So the ultimate goal for the seeker is to constantly endeavor to go beyond these properties, to transcend their binding influence.
Precisely.
Let's imagine this in daily life. Someone constantly seeking new experiences, achievements, recognition, driven by restless ambition and endless activity. That's rajas.
Clearly, rajas dominant. Or perhaps someone often feeling stuck in laziness, procrastination, negativity, unable to stir themselves to action, feeling apathetic.
That's Tomas at play.
Right. But then consider someone genuinely very good, learned, ethical, maybe spiritually inclined.
Yet they might still be deeply attached to their good deeds, their reputation as a good person, their intellectual understanding, or the joy derived from their virtues.
That's the subtle, powerful binding of sattva.
So the Gita says all these gunas, while different, still bind us because they keep us focused on the temporary world and the ego's identification with these qualities.
Yes. The goal is to transcend all three, to act without being completely identified with these qualities.
Knowing that God is untouched by its properties and that we too can aspire to that state of detachment and liberation.
It's about becoming an observer of these forces rather than being controlled by them.
This raises an incredibly important question for any spiritual seeker then. If even goodness, sattva, can be a form of bondage, how do we distinguish between actions performed for true liberation and actions that merely perpetuate the cycle, even if they seem virtuous?
It means shifting our focus from doing for results, even noble ones like recognition or personal satisfaction, to being in a state of inner freedom and detachment from the qualities driving the action.
The core insight here is that profound self-awareness of these gunas allows us to observe our inner workings, motivations, tendencies without identification.
This leads towards liberation from their pervasive influence, helping us move from being driven by nature's forces
to becoming a master of oneself. Understanding true freedom lies beyond the pull of all three gunas.
It's a call to profound self-observation and inner mastery.
Which brings us to another indispensable aspect of the Gita's wisdom, one echoing across millennia in Indian traditions, the absolutely crucial role of an accomplished teacher, or guru.
Yes. The text makes it abundantly clear that direct guidance from a truly realized, accomplished teacher is paramount for navigating the often complex spiritual path and for resolving the deepest doubts, as intellectual understanding alone is often insufficient, even misleading.
The text shows Arjun struggling, wrestling with complex concepts, almost giving up.
Exactly, and explicitly states, a seeker must go only to the knower of essence for resolving doubts about the spiritual wisdom, dharma, and eternal truth. And importantly, it asserts, when the God we crave for the accomplished sage abides in the soul and begins to instruct him, only then does real worship begin.
Wow, so the true spiritual journey, the actual transformation, starts with that living connection.
That's the implication. It further emphasizes that visualizing the known form of a noble mentor, an accomplished or enlightened teacher, is the key to successful worship, implying a profound, energetic, spiritual connection.
And it warns, in the absence of such a direction, the worshiper will be deprived of the attainment of God.
It notes Lord Krishna himself was an enlightened soul, and that all sages belong to one fraternity, highlighting the universality of true spiritual realization.
Here's where it gets really interesting and deeply practical. This isn't just about reading books, attending lectures, gathering information.
No, it's about finding that living embodiment of wisdom, someone who hasn't just read the map, but has walked the path themselves and can actually show you the way.
The Guru Shishya Parampara, the teacher-disciple tradition central to Indian spirituality for millennia, exists for this reason.
Just as a student needs a living teacher for classical music to correct posture, guide technique, clarify nuances, inspire my heart, or for a martial art.
A spiritual seeker needs an experienced guide who has traversed the path themselves.
The Gita shows Arjun's profound existential doubts were only truly dispelled by Krishna's direct living guidance.
Proving intellectual understanding, even vast scriptural knowledge, is often not enough. Personal living guidance from a realized soul is paramount for practical spiritual transformation.
So what does this all mean for us today, in an age of information overload where anyone can claim spiritual authority?
It means seeking out true, experienced guidance, exercising discernment.
Rather than simply relying on abstract knowledge, countless books, or self-proclaimed experts who haven't walked the path.
Which raises the question, How do we discern a genuine accomplished teacher, one who knows the essence, from someone merely dispensing theories or charisma?
The Gita implies the guru provides living wisdom, precise, tailored instruction, acts as a beacon of inspiration, steering the seeker away from pitfalls, accelerating their journey, making the path more effective and less prone to self-deception or getting lost in complexities.
The core insight is that true spiritual progress requires both sincere personal effort and the invaluable direct living guidance of a realized soul. It acts as a catalyst.
A catalyst for profound transformation. Yes.
Finally, as we navigate these internal properties and obstacles, the Gita offers incredibly practical wisdom for the yogi, emphasizing the indispensable role of mind control and disciplined practice.
Presenting yoga not as abstract philosophy or just postures, but as a tangible, achievable path to sustain inner contentment, peace, and ultimate union.
How does the source define yoga?
Not as exercises, but as the joining of the soul wandering amidst nature with God who is beyond nature. That's the ultimate goal. It describes the state of victory of the mind when the eye is set on the breath, when the name is incorporated into breath, and no desire of the external world can enter into the worshiper.
So it provides concrete techniques.
Yes, and remarkably practical advice. A yogi should ideally sleep for 4 hours and be constantly engaged in meditation.
4 hours? That sounds extreme.
But here's the crucial caveat, speaking of balance. Men who curb their sleep by force soon lose their sanity.
Highlighting moderation and a sane approach. Very important.
Absolutely. It also emphasizes a steady and appropriately sized seat for meditation, not too high, unstable, nor too low, uncomfortable. Small but vital details for sustained practice.
So this isn't about extreme asceticism or impractical austerities.
No, it's about cultivating practical daily disciplines for inner peace and mental stability that anyone can integrate.
Many people try meditating, but their minds race incessantly, jumping from thought to thought like a restless monkey. The Gita suggests techniques like focusing on the breath, allowing it to deepen, and incorporating a name, a mantra, sacred sound, deity's name.
To stabilize the mind and prevent external desires and distractions from entering and disturbing inner tranquility.
Like training a spirited animal, consistent, gentle, yet firm effort, not brute force.
Exactly. The advice on sleep and seating shows how practical and grounded this path is, actively advising against fanaticism or extremes that harm physical or mental health.
It's about building a sustainable, balanced practice, not a fleeting, intense one leading to burnout. Truly a guide for everyday living.
What's truly fascinating here is the sheer practicality and common sense embedded in these ancient teachings. This isn't abstract philosophy for hermits. It's a roadmap for transforming your internal state, offering concrete advice for daily life, from sitting to sleeping.
Which raises an important question for our modern, busy lives.
How can we thoughtfully and effectively integrate these timeless disciplines, emphasizing inner peace, mental control, balance into our often chaotic schedules for profound, lasting benefit?
The core insight here is that yoga provides tangible, achievable techniques for inner discipline,
leading to a profound transformation of consciousness, sustained happiness, true inner freedom.
It proves spiritual growth is an achievable, practical endeavor for anyone willing to put in the consistent, intelligent effort, making their life a continuous journey toward inner mastery.
Well said. 4. The ultimate goal, union and liberation.
As we move towards the ultimate goal articulated in the later climactic chapters of the Gita, we encounter a profound teaching about God's omnipresence and inward manifestation.
Yes. The core concept here is that God isn't a distant external entity. He is the fundamental source and animating principle of the entire universe, omnipresent in all creation.
And crucially, the Gita teaches God manifests primarily within the human heart through divine power, Atmamaya,
rather than exclusively as an external, physically appearing savior.
The source makes this crystal clear and deeply personal. It defines avatar not just as a physical descent, but as an incarnation that is always brought about within man's heart, never outside.
That fundamentally shifts our understanding of divine presence.
God manifests himself as a savior of saintly men. The text reveals he, the adored, is the one God after attaining whom there is nothing else to contemplate, signifying ultimate fulfillment.
Lord Krishna states he manifests himself by Atmamaya and by subduing by his yog his nature with its three properties, meaning by his own divine power beyond material nature's limits.
The ordinary person can't easily perceive God because he is hidden behind my yog maya, his divine illusion.
Yet his presence is described as pervasive. I am the fragrance in the earth, the flame and fire, the soul that animates all beings, and the penance of ascetics.
And ultimately, God is all these and all knowledge.
Yes.
Okay, let's unpack this because it's incredibly powerful and transformative. It completely shifts the focus from looking for God exclusively in a distant temple, mosque, church, or waiting passively for a divine figure to descend and solve your problems. Instead, it guides us to realize the true living abode of God is your own heart, your very consciousness.
Think of the ancient Indian concept of Antaryami, the indweller, the divine presence within.
When you feel a sudden surge of profound inner peace after deep meditation, or experience a moment of crystal clear clarity and intuitive wisdom in a tough situation,
Or feel an overwhelming burst of selfless compassion for another being.
that, according to the Gita, is a direct manifestation of God's presence by Atmamaya within you.
This is where it gets really interesting. It places the power of divine connection, ultimate liberation, directly in our hands.
Emphasizing self-reliance and inner exploration in our spiritual journey. Salvation isn't out there, but deeply connected to your own awakening within.
Absolutely. And if we truly connect this to the bigger picture, it means the path to God is fundamentally internal, an inward journey of discovery and realization.
True salvation, profound divine connection, come not from external rituals or intermediaries.
But from realizing, recognizing, aligning with the divine presence within oneself, leading to profound self-reliance, empowerment, a sense of completeness.
This raises an important question, though. If God is indeed within us and permeates all creation,
How do we quiet the relentless external noise, our own inner distractions and restlessness, to truly perceive and connect with that omnipresent divine essence?
the core insight is that the Gita liberates us from external dependencies, from searching outside ourselves.
And instead empowers us to discover the immense profound strength, peace, wisdom that arise from an internal experiential realization of God.
It shifts the entire paradigm of spirituality from external seeking to internal awakening.
Beautifully put.
Another incredibly hopeful and radically inclusive teaching from the Gita is what we can call the arc of knowledge, salvation for all.
Yes, the core concept here is that true knowledge of God, genuine spiritual wisdom, is so potent, so transformative. It has the power to purify even the most heinous sinner, offering profound salvation and liberation to all who genuinely seek it.
Regardless of their past actions, perceived status, or social standing.
The source makes a striking, deeply compassionate claim. Even if you are the most heinous sinner, the arc of knowledge will carry you safely across all evils.
That's a message of profound forgiveness and opportunity.
It clarifies, though, this is not a license to commit more sin, but an assurance of redemption for those who truly repent and reform.
Right, it's about genuine change.
Yes, it further states, even if a man of the most depraved conduct worships me incessantly, he is worthy of being regarded as a saint because he is a man of true resolve.
Emphasizing sincere intention and transformation of heart.
And the Gita is declared to be meant for everyone, everywhere. A virtuous person or a sinner, a woman or a man, chaste or extremely sinful, residing anywhere in the universe, all are entitled to gain entry in it.
That universal invitation is profound. Everyone is entitled.
It really is.
This is a message of immense hope and radical inclusivity. A truly revolutionary concept challenging the idea that only the pure or sinless are worthy of spiritual attainment or divine grace. Think of classic stories of transformation in Indian tradition, like the notorious dacoit, the bandit Ratnakar, transforming into the great Saint Valmiki, author of the Ramayana.
Someone with a truly dark past, yet his sincere change of heart and dedication to spiritual knowledge utterly purified him.
The Gita emphasizes that a true change of heart, a sincere resolve to seek God, and acquiring genuine spiritual knowledge, not just intellectual understanding, but profound experiential knowledge.
Can purify any past misdeeds.
It's not about dwelling on your past or being eternally burdened by labels. It's about embracing your profound potential for divine connection now.
Regardless of where you started, it truly is a universal invitation to spiritual growth and ultimate freedom, accessible to every single soul.
This raises an important question. If knowledge truly purifies all evils, what does that imply about our traditional understanding of sin, karma, redemption?
It suggests true liberation comes from a profound internal understanding and embodiment of truth, rather than merely following external rules or seeking external forgiveness through rituals alone.
It's a powerful call to universal compassion and spiritual accessibility, emphasizing sincere intention and transformative knowledge as the ultimate pathway.
Transcending accumulated karmic baggage or restrictive social labels.
The core insight is that the Gita offers a path of ultimate redemption and liberation, unequivocally underscoring that no one is beyond the reach of divine grace and transformative wisdom,
if they genuinely seek it with a pure and unwavering resolve.
Next, let's explore what the Gita tells us about true happiness and renunciation, guiding us beyond worldly attachments.
Yes, the core concept is profound yet simple. Lasting, unchanging happiness is eternal, found solely in union with God, in realizing the self within.
Not found in transient worldly pleasures, which, by their very nature, are inherently a cause of grief, disappointment, endless craving.
And true renunciation, Sanyas, is fundamentally about detaching from desires and the fruits of action.
Not necessarily abandoning all duties, responsibilities, or external worldly life.
The text explains with remarkable clarity. The steadfast man who regards sorrow and happiness with equipoise and is not troubled by his senses and their association with objects, is worthy of the state of immortality.
Highlighting inner balance, equipoise.
Yes, it's explicitly stated. Since the pleasures arising from the association of senses with their objects are a cause of grief and are transitory, men of wisdom do not desire them.
Not a moral judgment, but a statement of psychological fact.
Exactly. And crucially, it defines true renunciation. Renunciation is the crowning point of resignation. Performance of the prescribed task and the rapture that results from meditation are indeed virtuous, while sensual pleasure is an outcome of infatuation.
So meditation brings rapture, sensual pleasure brings infatuation. Interesting contrast.
And a true sage is described as independent of the world, ever contented, and renouncing all attachment to action as well as its fruits, signifying profound internal freedom.
Here's where it gets really interesting and challenges our modern consumerist mindset. This isn't about giving up everything you enjoy, embracing deprivation, retreating to a cave.
No, it's about realizing that what truly makes us happy isn't found outside in accumulating things, chasing fleeting experiences, seeking external validation.
Lasting happiness is found inside, in our own state of being, in our inner freedom.
Consider the relentless pursuit of material wealth or sensory gratification today, constantly seeking new gadgets, bigger houses, endless entertainment, the next exciting experience.
The Gita reminds us these bring only fleeting satisfaction. A momentary high, often followed by craving, disappointment, even addiction, and deeper emptiness.
True sannyas, renunciation, isn't necessarily leaving home to become an ascetic, growing a long beard, wearing saffron robes, abandoning family.
It's about renouncing desires, home, and all, and placing trust in God alone, but doing so in your mind and heart while still engaging in your duties.
Being in the world but not of the world. Finding contentment and fulfillment in the self.
Like someone finding deep joy in simple living and inner peace, rather than endless accumulation and external validation.
Exactly.
This raises an incredibly important question for our society. How do we consciously shift our focus from a culture relentlessly promoting external gratification and consumption
to one prioritizing inner contentment, profound peace, true detachment?
It means radically redefining our very search for happiness, investing deeply in our inner world, our spiritual growth.
The core insight is that lasting peace, genuine happiness, come from detaching from the fleeting allure of sensory objects, external validation, transient pleasures.
Instead, finding profound, unwavering fulfillment in the eternal, unchanging self within.
This profound detachment allows us to engage fully with the world, perform duties, experience life, but without being enslaved by its temporary pleasures or pains.
Leading to a state of sustained inner bliss.
Yes, sustained inner bliss.
Finally, to wrap up this profound deep dive, our source material presents the Bhagavad Gita itself not just as a spiritual book, but as a universal, self-contained spiritual handbook, the ultimate guide for all humanity.
Yes. The core concept is that it's a comprehensive, complete roadmap for right action, inner transformation, ultimate liberation, designed for every individual, transcending specific creeds, social divisions, geographical boundaries.
The source makes a powerful, almost audacious assertion, underscoring its unique position. The Gita is the only true Manusmriti, and Lord Krishna says that it is the scripture. There is no other scripture, no other Smriti.
A claim of ultimate authority and completeness.
It's described as a universal and eternal spiritual treatise, enduringly and most relevant to every nation, every religion, every living being. Indeed, it is meant for everyone, everywhere.
The Gita is a scripture that is meant for the entire human race for use as a spiritual textbook.
It's deemed self-contained. There is not a single point in it that may engender any doubt, implying its logical coherence, comprehensiveness.
And for resolving any doubts that might arise, it advises, if we fail to comprehend any part of the Gita, we can resolve our doubts, as did Arjun, by sitting devoutly by a sage who has perceived and realized the essence.
Back to the importance of the realized teacher.
Exactly. It mentions great spiritual figures like Bhagwan Mahavir, Bhagwan Buddha, also reflected its essential message, highlighting its profound universal appeal beyond specific traditions.
This is a profound and incredibly inclusive declaration, the Gita, as the foundational spiritual text, transcending all sectarian divisions based on faith, caste, geography.
It's like a complete operating manual for spiritual life, not just for specific groups, but truly for every nation, every religion, every living being.
If you have a question about spiritual practice, navigating life's challenges, understanding your ultimate purpose, the Gita is presented as having the comprehensive answer.
And if you encounter doubts, complex passages, like Arjun's many questions,
the path is to seek an accomplished sage, a living, realized teacher who has perceived and realized its truth.
emphasizing a living tradition of knowledge, not just dormant texts locked away.
The wisdom is alive, dynamic, transmissible, directly from a realized consciousness to a sincere seeker, making the path tangible, achievable.
What's truly fascinating here is the boldness, the universality of the claim. The Gita as the sole true scripture, universal in application for all humanity.
This raises an important question. If it's so complete and universally applicable,
how do we prevent it from being narrowed by rigid, dogmatic, sectarian interpretations? How do we ensure its liberating message remains vibrant, accessible, transformative in every generation, every corner of the world?
The core insight is that the Gita is a timeless, comprehensive guide for human spiritual evolution, accessible and relevant to anyone approaching it with sincerity, an open heart, and seeking proper living guidance.
Offering a clear, actionable blueprint for lasting peace and prosperity, not just for individuals, but by extension, for society as a whole.
Demonstrating its profound and enduring relevance. Outro. Well, today we've taken a truly deep dive into the Bhagavad Gita, moving far beyond the literal battlefield to discover the profound internal war for self-mastery that really defines the human experience.
We've unpacked how selfless action, Nishkam Karma, can profoundly transform us, how true Dharma is about inner conduct and divine union, how we can understand and ultimately transcend our inner forces, those gunas.
And most importantly, how ultimate liberation and lasting peace are achieved through profound knowledge, consistent discipline, and that invaluable guidance of an accomplished teacher.
So, if the Gita is indeed a universal spiritual textbook, as our source asserts, and its timeless teachings are fundamentally about an internal journey, rather than external rituals, social affiliations, or dogma, then consider this. What war are you fighting within yourself right now? What inner attachments, what desires, what limiting beliefs, or what deep-seated ignorance are subtly or overtly holding you back from your fullest potential?
And how might the Gita's timeless wisdom, when consciously applied to your unique internal landscape, offer you not just theoretical understanding,
but the ultimate, most profound victory, not over others, but over your own inner limitations and the illusions that bind you to suffering?
That's a powerful thought to leave with. We hope this deep dive has given you a fresh perspective, maybe ignited your curiosity, and offered a powerful new lens through which to view your own life's journey and your inner world.
Keep exploring, keep questioning,
And keep diving deep into the profound wisdom that lies within yourself.
All right, everyone, that brings us to the end of another insightful discussion on the Yatharth Geeta by Swami Adgadanand ji. We've delved into some profound concepts today, and I truly hope it's offered you some new perspectives on this timeless scripture. I want to extend a massive thank you to all of you for tuning in and joining us on this journey. Your presence and engagement make these conversations so much more enriching. We are incredibly grateful for your continued support. As we sign off, we wish you all the very best on your spiritual paths and in all your future endeavors. May the wisdom of the Yatharth Geeta continue to guide you. Before you go, if you enjoyed today's episode, please do us a huge favor. Like this video, share it with your friends and family who might benefit from these discussions, and most importantly, subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss any of our future episodes. Your support helps us spread these invaluable teachings far and wide.